All right, we are going to do our fourth image, fix my face, please. And we're going to open it up in Photoshop. From here, we need to rotate. We're going to go up to Image, up at the very top, and we're going to rotate this image. Okay, we're going to do it. We can do all of these different things, but we want to make sure that we're doing it counterclockwise. And you'll see now straight up and down. Again, that was up here in image, so kind of off the screen for you guys, but image rotation, you rotate that. From here, what we're going to want to do is do some adjustments to layers. You guys can zoom in and double click on the zoom here, and you can zoom around. Again, use the space bar. You can move him with the little hand. I'm just putting on the space bar and moving around. You may want to fix a few things on his face, a little drool right here. Go in and do your healing. Heal out some of his wrinkles maybe. A little guy right there. Let's see if we can get rid of that. That looks a little bit better. You could remove all kinds of stuff if you wanted to. You could go in here. There's a little spot right here. Get rid of that. Maybe hit this side too, just for fun. I see a little spot right there. Oops. If you do something you don't like, just Command Z and undo it. And we're just going to walk around this image a little bit and remove some stuff. It's looking a little bit better. See what his neck looks like. Not too bad. A little spot right here. Let's get rid of that. You can use the brackets on your keyboard to make your stuff bigger or smaller. Get it to the size you want it. Double click on the hand. It's going to bring you right back to the original image here. So now what we want to do is we want to start creating some adjustments. If you don't have this adjustment here, go up to your windows up at the top and turn on your adjustments. Okay, it'll be hanging out up at the top there of your adjustments. We want to have this kind of over on the side here so that we can create some adjustments. We want to do just like we did when we created a layer mask. We want to go and use our lasso tools. So we're going to use the polygonal lasso tool right there. This one will allow for us to click and create a selection. So I'm going to click along to make a selection of his hair. And you can get as fine-tuned as you want as you go along with this selection tool. It's a little different than the other one that we used that you would draw freehand. This one allows for you to be a little bit more precise, I think. And we're going to go around this bad boy. See if we can get it all the way around, back up to the beginning. You'll see the little circle show up, and that gives you your dancing dots on your selection. So from here we can add any of these adjustments, and if you mouse over them you'll see that it changes. So you can do brightness, you can do levels, curves, all these exposures, and then hue and saturation. Hue and saturation is the one that's best for color adjustment. So I like to use that one for changing the color of his hair. But before we do that, we can create a feather on this by going up to, let's see, it's under Select. So if you go to the very top menu, select, modify a feather. A feather is just something that feathers out that selection. If you hit OK on that, you'll see that it changes just slightly. It's actually feathering into the selection. Then when we hit our hue and saturation button, we'll come up with our selection that we can start pulling on, and we can make nice funky hair colors. I think we want to just make him look a little, maybe darken his hair out. So I was thinking maybe just adding a little bit of brown to it, pulling down on here until we start seeing a little bit of color coming in. So you can really wonk out this, you know, making it all different colors and stuff like that. We don't want it to be fairly realistic, and we can just make it look darker. Take down on some of the saturation. Doesn't need to be quite as saturated. Adding maybe a little bit of red to his hair even. That might be kind of fun. But try to make it so it doesn't look totally unrealistic. And you can really darken up his hair until he looks really kind of unrealistic. So somewhere right in there maybe. And then what you'll see is if you click on your layers, you've created a layer mask, non-destructive, right? Click on and off with the eyeball. And then just like before, if you wanted to go with your paintbrush onto the mask itself, you could feather, you could go around and make it look a little more realistic by taking and, you know, create some highlights across the top of his hair, you know, so it's not just quite so abrupt. That looks pretty good. So now we've darkened his hair. Yeah, looks pretty good. Do the same thing with the teeth. You can select an area and finish that off. Got my nice selection. If you wanted to go up, you could do your modify a feather. That's under select. And you could feather it out a little bit. Go back to your adjustments. This time we'll use hue and saturation to brighten his teeth. Under hue and saturation, or wait, not hue and saturation. We want to go back. Let's go back to our selection. And we want to do adjustments. Let's do brightness and contrast. So under brightness and contrast, we can just brighten up his teeth. We could go really bright, but we don't want to do too much so it's not unrealistic. Just give him a little bit of brightness to his teeth. And then again, if you go back up to your layers, you will see I've added brightness and contrast, not hue and saturation. So now he's got some brightened up teeth. And you could do this to change the color of his shirt back here if you wanted to make it a red shirt to match Rent and High colors. You could say he's wearing, you know, a red shirt. You can do it for changing the color of his skin. If we select the background, we can come over here and we could do, you know, go back to our hue and saturation, and we can do an overall without a selection. You can see that you're changing the hue and saturation. You may want to change this just to give him a little bit of color into his skin. But it's up to you guys how you play around with maybe the background just to give it a little bit of life. Then you can go over and you can see that now you've done a correction to the whole image, gotten rid of some of the yellow out of that image. That's a great way to remove some of the yellow from the fluorescent lighting. So that in a nutshell is fixing that face. Feel free to use some of the other techniques to remove some of these lines. You know, he's aged quite a bit. You could make these lines less around his eyes. But again, ethically, I think we could just leave it there.